The gradual ebb of natural hair's sovereign reign, the phenomenon historians have come to term the Great Unpowdering, was not an abrupt revolution, but a slow, almost imperceptible erosion, a subtle shift that began its inexorable march in the latter half of the 17th century, and, by the dawn of the 18th, had begun to transform the very silhouette of the European gentleman. Before this profound stylistic evolution, hair, often worn long and unadorned, was the natural crown, a simple and direct declaration of the individual's identity. However, as fashion's capricious winds began to blow, and as the European courts, most notably and influentially that of Louis XIV, the Sun King, embraced an increasingly ostentatious and theatrical aesthetic, the practical limitations of natural hair became glaringly apparent. The desire for amplified volume, for a sculpted and uniform appearance that could be manipulated into ever more elaborate and architectural designs, directly led to the nascent wig-making industry. Imagine the sheer volume of raw materials arriving at the wig-maker's workshop, immense bales of hair, some harvested from the heads of local peasants, their humble locks offering a more readily available, though often coarser, supply, while other, far more prized bundles were procured from distant lands through intricate and often clandestine trading networks. Each bundle, carefully bundled and tied, served as a silent testament to the expanding global reach of this burgeoning aesthetic. The hair would then undergo a process of meticulous sorting, a painstaking categorization by color, by length, and by texture, a task that demanded an almost microscopic level of scrutiny and an extraordinary sensitivity to the subtle variations within the material. The wig-makers in these formative years were not simply artisans crafting headwear, they were alchemists of social standing, their skilled hands shaping the very cranial canvases that would soon direct the fortunes of kingdoms and the destinies of nations. The intimacy of their craft was absolute and without parallel. They knew the precise contours of a client's skull, the subtle way their ears protruded from beneath the intended hairline, the precise angle at which their neck met their shoulders, details that would inform the perfect fit and drape of the final product. This intimate knowledge, acquired through countless hours of close, almost reverential fitting sessions, formed the essential bedrock of their expertise and their unique value. The initial stages of preparation were as mundane in their execution as they were absolutely crucial to the success of the entire endeavor. The laborious washing of the hair, often with harsh lye soaps that stripped away natural oils and imparted a certain desirable brittleness for styling. The bleaching process, sometimes involving prolonged exposure to sunlight and various potent chemical concoctions to achieve lighter, more fashionable shades, and the relentless, methodical combing. This was a process designed not merely to untangle, but to align, to order, and to prepare the strands for the more delicate artistic work that would follow. The air within these early workshops would have been perpetually filled with the crisp, dry rustle of hair being worked, a sound that spoke not of haste or efficiency, but of immense patience and an unwavering commitment to relentless, thorough preparation. Even at this nascent stage, before the powdered wig had fully established its visual dominion, the wig-maker's role was far from simple or superficial. It was a profound exercise in understanding the tactile, the visual, and the unspoken demands of a society increasingly, and perhaps inevitably, obsessed with outward display and the subtle language of appearances. The very notion of natural hair began its slow, almost melancholic retreat from the forefront of fashion, replaced by the artifice of the wig, a potent symbol of controlled elegance and, for those who could afford its considerable expense, of demonstrably elevated status and refined taste. The true revolution, the seismic shift that irrevocably redefined the landscape of gentlemanly appearance and elevated the wig-maker to an artist of considerable social consequence, arrived with the advent and subsequent ubiquity of the powdered wig. This was not merely an additive layer to existing styles, a superficial enhancement of what was already present. It was a fundamental reimagining, a complete architectural renovation of the headwear itself, transforming it into a canvas for a new aesthetic. The powder, typically a finely milled meal or a specially prepared starch, often infused with the delicate, evocative fragrances of lavender, rose, or the more exotic bergamot, served a multitude of crucial and multifaceted purposes. Firstly, and perhaps most visibly, it acted as a masterful camouflage, meticulously obscuring the natural color and texture of the wig's hair. This allowed for the creation of a unified, ethereal tone, a consistent hue that transcended the inherent variations of natural sources, presenting a seamless and harmonious whole. Secondly, it lent an almost architectural loft and volume to the wig, enabling the wigmaker to sculpt hair into increasingly dramatic, elaborate, and even gravity-defying shapes, creating heights and structures that were previously unimaginable with natural hair alone. And crucially, the powder added a palpable, almost luminous layer of sophistication, a visual cue that signaled a certain detachment from the mundane, a refinement and an elevated status that distinguished the wearer from the common throng. The process of powdering was, in itself, an art form, a delicate ballet of dust and scent performed with the utmost precision and care. The wig, once meticulously styled and shaped according to the wearer's specifications and the prevailing fashion, would be placed upon a specialized stand, a specially designed pedestal that elevated it to a position of prominence within the workshop, allowing the wigmaker unfettered access. The wigmaker, often employing a fine mesh sieve or a specially crafted bellows, would then gently, deliberately puff the powder onto the hair. This was not a haphazard or indiscriminate application. It was a carefully orchestrated process. The powder had to be distributed with an almost surgical evenness, designed to catch the light in a way that created an illusion of softness, of depth, and of an airy, almost celestial luminescence. Too much powder, and the wig would appear dusty, unkempt, and decidedly unrefined, an unforgivable sin in the discerning eyes of fashion and social etiquette. Too little, and the intended ethereal effect, the desired visual transformation that elevated the wearer, would be utterly lost, rendering the effort futile. The scent of the powder was also a matter of considerable importance, a detail not to be overlooked, as it contributed significantly to the overall sensory experience and the impression conveyed. It was not merely about masking any potentially unpleasant odors that might arise from the hair or the wearer, though that was a practical if unspoken consideration in times of less frequent bathing. Rather, it was about creating an olfactory signature, a subtle yet distinct emanation that would accompany the wearer, an invisible halo that signaled their presence and conveyed a certain essence before they were even fully seen. Different scents, the wigmaker understood implicitly, were associated with different social circles, with different occasions, from the solemnity of courtly functions to the conviviality of private gatherings, and even with different perceived personalities and temperaments. The wigmaker, in their quiet atelier, surrounded by the tools of their trade and the materials of their art, was thus not merely a craftsman. They were a perfumer, a colorist, a stylist, and a subtle psychologist, all integrated into a single dedicated artisan whose skills extended far beyond mere manual dexterity. The meticulousness of this powdering process, its demands for precision and control cannot be overstated. Imagine the fine particles of powder settling onto the hair, the almost imperceptible settling, the careful brushing and teasing that followed to ensure no clumps, no bald spots, and no uneven distribution, creating a uniform and flattering effect. This was not simply the application of a cosmetic, it was the deliberate creation of an aura, a carefully controlled halo of elegance that adorned the wearer and subtly amplified their presence.
The statesman, our ultimate subject, and the focal point of this intricate narrative, occupied a unique and pivotal position within this complex sartorial ecosystem, a position that amplified the significance of his chosen adornments. His wig was not simply an accessory, an optional embellishment to his attire. It was a declaration, a potent and unambiguous statement of authority, of intellect, and of his very right, his earned entitlement to govern and to lead. In a society where visual cues held immense, often decisive power and were readily interpreted as indicators of character and capability, the statesman's wig was a silent yet undeniably potent declaration of his standing, his influence, and his perceived competence. Its appearance was not merely observed, it was intensely scrutinized, meticulously analyzed, and widely discussed in hushed tones within the hushed confines of exclusive salons, the boisterous and opinionated environs of coffee houses, and even within the hallowed and often contentious halls of parliamentary chambers. A perfectly curled wig, meticulously powdered to a flawless hue and impeccably maintained throughout the day, spoke volumes to those who observed it. It conveyed an image of order, of unwavering control, of a mind that was unburdened by trivialities and therefore free to focus its considerable energy on matters of state and national importance. Conversely, a wig that was slightly askew, its carefully constructed curls beginning to droop with the heat of the day or the intensity of debate, or its powder showing signs of wear and tear, could be interpreted, often swiftly and decisively, as a sign of weakness, of internal disarray within the statesman's personal affairs, or even, in the most damning and critical assessments, of a declining intellect and a faltering grip on his responsibilities. The wig-maker, therefore, bore an immense and often unacknowledged responsibility, a weight that extended far beyond the mere crafting of hair. They were the silent architects of a statesman's public persona, the unseen hands that shaped the very image of leadership, an image that was crucial for maintaining public trust and political stability. The choice of wig style itself was a matter of significant strategic import, a decision laden with social and political meaning. The full-bottomed wig, with its luxuriant cascading curls that framed the face and cascaded down the shoulders, was the preferred and most respected style for the most formal occasions, conveying an undeniable sense of gravitas, of tradition, and of established, unshakable power. The smaller, more manageable periwig, with its shorter, more practical curls, was deemed suitable for less formal settings, for audiences with constituents, or for those statesmen who wished to project an image of being more approachable, more modern, and perhaps less bound by the strictures of rigid tradition. The wig-maker had to possess an uncanny understanding of these nuanced social codes and visual languages, to intuitively know which style would best complement the individual statesman's physical features, his perceived personality, and the specific context in which he would be seen and judged. This profound understanding was not acquired overnight. It was honed through years of patient observation, of meticulously studying the subtle cues of body language, and of deciphering the unspoken yet powerful dictates of prevailing fashion and social etiquette. The wig, in essence, was a visual manuscript, a carefully composed text, and the wig-maker was its esteemed scribe, meticulously penning the opening lines of a statesman's public narrative, lines that would be read, interpreted, and often debated by a discerning and influential audience.
The almost obsessive focus on the precise curl of the wig was not an arbitrary or superficial fixation. It was deeply rooted in the very physics of hair itself, and the subtle yet critically important properties of the materials employed in its creation and maintenance. The successful and enduring formation of a consistent, well-defined curl required not only the practiced dexterity and artistic eye of the wig-maker, but also a profound and intimate understanding of temperature, moisture, and the precise tension applied to the hair fibers. To achieve these desired curls, wig-makers employed a variety of ingenious and often labor-intensive methods. Hot curling irons, meticulously heated over specialized braziers filled with glowing charcoal, were a primary and indispensable tool in their arsenal. The heat emanating from these irons had to be controlled with an almost surgical precision. Too much heat, and the delicate hair would inevitably singe, becoming brittle, prone to breakage, and utterly unusable for its intended purpose, ruining hours of work. Conversely, too little heat, and the curl would be weak, ephemeral, and unlikely to withstand the inevitable rigors of daily wear and public exposure, quickly losing its shape and intended form.
The process involved the careful, deliberate drawing of individual strands or small, controlled sections of hair through the heated iron, ensuring an even and consistent application of heat from the root all the way to the tip of the strand, a technique that demanded absolute control and precision. This maneuver required a remarkably steady hand and an exceptionally keen eye, the ability to feel the subtle, almost imperceptible resistance of the hair as it yielded to the heat, to know precisely when the curl was perfectly set without causing damage. Furthermore, the very type of hair itself played a crucial and often complex role in the final outcome and the wig's longevity. Human hair, with its inherent natural variations in thickness, cuticle structure, and porosity, behaved in a significantly different manner than the animal hair, often horsehair or badger hair, that was sometimes blended in to achieve added volume, enhance resilience, or impart a particular desirable sheen. The wig maker had to possess an innate and deeply ingrained understanding of these material differences, to know how to coax the desired curl from each specific type of hair, and, crucially, how to blend them harmoniously to create a unified and aesthetically pleasing whole. They would experiment tirelessly with different temperatures, different pressures applied by the iron, and different techniques of twisting and winding the hair, all in the relentless, unwavering pursuit of a perfect, enduring wave that would hold its shape. Imagine the distinct, somewhat sharp scent of heated hair that would have permeated the workshop, a slightly acrid but not entirely unpleasant odor, often mingling with the sweet, pervasive perfume of the powders and pomades used in the finishing stages of the wig's creation. This was the alchemical process of transforming raw, unformed material into a potent symbol of power, prestige, and social standing.
The set of a wig, referring to the precise manner in which its curls were arranged and held in place, was as fundamentally important to its overall appearance and function as the individual curl itself. A wig was not simply worn in a haphazard or casual manner. It was meticulously arranged, carefully positioned on the wearer's head to achieve a specific intended visual effect that conveyed a particular message. The wig maker would often provide detailed, often meticulously written instructions to the wearer, or, more commonly and practically, to their personal valet, on the precise methods for maintaining the wig's pristine form and styling throughout the day. This involved careful, almost ritualistic brushing, the judicious use of specific pomades and waxes to hold the curls in place with a subtle yet firm grip, preventing them from loosening or tangling, and sometimes even the application of starch solutions to stiffen certain sections, lending them a more architectural rigidity and a sharper definition. The ultimate goal of this meticulous process was to create an appearance of effortless elegance, a seemingly natural cascade of curls that belied the considerable effort, time, and specialized skill that had been invested in their creation and their ongoing rigorous maintenance. For the statesman, this meant that his wig had to be exceptionally robust and resilient, capable of withstanding the inevitable rigors and demands of public life, the ambient warmth of crowded assembly rooms and parliamentary chambers, the gentle but persistent jostling of a carriage journey through uneven streets, and even the capricious gust of wind that could so easily disrupt and dishevel a less stable coiffure, potentially undermining the image of control. The curl had to be inherently resilient, its carefully constructed form meticulously retained even under these challenging and unpredictable conditions. This practical necessity led to the development of increasingly sophisticated setting techniques within the wig-making craft. Wig makers would spend hours, sometimes entire nights, carefully pinning and shaping the hair on specialized blocks, allowing it to set over an extended period in a controlled environment. This might involve placing the wig on a specially designed wooden block, allowing the forces of gravity and the careful tension of the pins to mold the hair into its desired enduring shape, ensuring that each curl held its form with precision. The quiet dedication of this overnight setting process speaks volumes about the wig maker's profound commitment to their craft and the high stakes involved.
They were not simply executing a client's request, they were investing their deep expertise, their valuable time, and their professional reputation in the success and integrity of each individual wig, understanding that its appearance would directly reflect upon their own standing and the reputation of their establishment.
The social semiotics of the curl were incredibly complex and deeply ingrained within the very fabric of 18th-century society, functioning as a subtle but potent form of non-verbal communication. A tightly wound, perfectly uniform curl might suggest a meticulous, perhaps even rigid personality, one that valued order, discipline, and predictability above all else. Conversely, a looser, more relaxed and less uniform curl could imply a more jovial, less formal disposition, a character that was perhaps more amenable to spontaneity, wit, and a less structured approach to life. The statesman's wig therefore served as an immediate visual shorthand, a quick and efficient means for observers to form an initial, often subconscious judgment about the wearer's character, temperament, and intellectual capacity. The wig maker, by possessing and skillfully applying this nuanced understanding of subtle visual cues, could actively influence and subtly shape this perception, crafting a wig that aligned with or enhanced the statesman's desired public image. Imagine a statesman preparing to deliver a crucial parliamentary debate, his reputation, his political future, and potentially the fate of important legislation hanging precariously in the balance. His wig, likely commissioned and worked on for months in advance, would have been meticulously crafted with the specific intention of projecting an image of unwavering confidence, of profound intellectual acuity, and of unshakable authority. The curls would be perfectly formed, each one echoing the others with a disciplined, almost mathematical regularity, creating an impression of absolute control and intellectual order. This was not about outright deception, about fabricating a persona that was entirely untrue, but rather about presenting oneself in the most advantageous and strategically effective light, a practice as ancient and as fundamental to human interaction as communication itself. The wig-maker's role was to translate the statesman's aspirations, the prevailing social expectations, and the subtle demands of the political arena into tangible, wearable art. They were the silent partners in the grand, often dramatic theater of politics, their meticulous work contributing to the essential illusion of stability, competence, and inherent authority that was so vital for those who occupied positions of power and sought to maintain public trust. The very act of a statesman adjusting his wig, a seemingly minor and perhaps unconscious gesture, could draw the keen attention of watchful observers, an implicit acknowledgement of the profound power and significance of this artificial adornment in shaping perceptions.
The commissioning of a statesman's wig was not a trivial matter, but rather a significant undertaking, an event that often involved extended consultations, multiple fittings, and a considerable investment of time and resources from both the client and the craftsman. It was not a matter of casually walking into a shop and selecting a pre-made, off-the-shelf item from a display. Instead, the wig-maker would typically visit the statesman in his residence, or the statesman, often accompanied by his retinue or a trusted aide, would visit the wig-maker's workshop, where the process would begin with a detailed, often lengthy discussion of requirements and aspirations. This critical conversation encompassed the desired style, whether it leaned towards the grand formality of the full-bottomed wig, signifying established power, or the more contemporary neatness of the periwig, suggesting modernity and approachability. The intended volume and density of the hair, the precise length and tightness of the curls, and even the exact shade and intensity of the powder to be used, each choice carrying subtle implications. The wig-maker would then meticulously take careful measurements of the client's head, noting not only the circumference, but also the exact placement of the hairline, the subtle slope of the head, and the precise angle at which the neck met the shoulders, details that were crucial for achieving both comfort and a natural, seamless integration of the wig with the wearer's own features. The choice of materials was also a subject of careful discussion and negotiation, a balance between ideal aesthetics and practical considerations. While human hair was undoubtedly the most prized for its natural luster, its exceptional pliability, and its superior ability to hold a curl beautifully, its considerable cost and variable availability could sometimes present significant limitations. Wigmakers might suggest blends of human and animal hair, perhaps a luxurious human hair base for the visible strands, with a more resilient horsehair for added volume and structure in less conspicuous areas, to achieve specific stylistic effects, or, pragmatically, to manage the overall expense of the commission. The consultation itself was a delicate dance of negotiation, of artistic interpretation, and of subtly understanding the unspoken desires and political imperatives of the client. The wigmaker had to skillfully balance the statesman's specific preferences with their own extensive expertise and artistic judgment, ensuring that the final product would be not only aesthetically pleasing, but also functionally sound, socially appropriate, and politically advantageous. The quiet hum of conversation, the rustle of measuring tapes, and the faint but pervasive scent of hair and pomade would fill the consultation room, creating a microcosm of the complex social, artistic, and economic considerations that were intrinsically at play in this highly specialized and influential craft.
The apprentice system formed the very bedrock and the essential dynamic engine of the wig-making trade, serving as the primary mechanism for transmitting skill, knowledge, and the deeply ingrained ethos of the craft from one generation to the next. Young men, often from humble, working-class backgrounds, lacking prospects for more genteel professions, would enter a wig-maker's workshop as apprentices, bound by formal indenture agreements for several years, typically spanning their adolescence into early adulthood. Their early training was invariably arduous, demanding, and often monotonous, designed to instill discipline and patience before allowing access to the more creative aspects of the trade. They would spend countless hours performing the most basic, repetitive tasks, sorting vast quantities of hair by color, length, and texture, meticulously washing and preparing it, often in large vats, and relentlessly, methodically combing it into submission, smoothing out tangles and aligning strands. They learned to distinguish the finest, most pliable strands from the coarser, more resistant ones, to identify even the most minute imperfections in the hair, and to prepare the raw materials for the master wigmaker's more delicate artistic touch. The apprenticeship was not merely about the acquisition of technical skills, though these were paramount. It was about the installation of a deep, almost spiritual respect for the craft, a rigorous dedication to perfection in every detail, and an unwavering understanding of the profound patience required to master the complexities of wig-making. The master wigmaker, a figure of considerable authority and artisanal expertise, would impart his knowledge gradually, demonstrating intricate techniques with slow, deliberate movements, correcting mistakes with firm but fair guidance, and fostering within his apprentices a burgeoning sense of professional pride and a deep sense of responsibility for the quality of their work. The apprentice, in turn, would observe intently, absorb every nuance and subtle instruction, and practice relentlessly, honing their skills through sheer, unadulterated repetition and constant application. The workshop itself was a self-contained universe, a world unto itself, filled with the sharp, rhythmic sounds of snipping scissors, the consistent rasp of combs working through hair, and the quiet, instructive murmur of the master guiding his charges. The air within this enclosed space would be thick with the complex aroma of hair, the fine dust of powder, and the faint metallic tang of heated irons, the olfactory signature of the trade. This was where the foundations of obsessive dedication were laid, where the seemingly trivial practices of sorting, washing, and combing were imbued with a profound, almost sacred importance, laying the groundwork for the meticulous work that would define their careers. The archive of patterns and molds, meticulously preserved and jealously guarded by generations of wigmakers, represented an invaluable treasure trove of accumulated knowledge and proven techniques for the experienced artisan. These were not simply rough sketches or casual notations scribbled on scraps of parchment.
They were detailed, precise representations of successful styles, often recorded with exact measurements, specific instructions for the particular techniques required for curling and setting, and even notes on the precise type of hair and powder that had been used to achieve the desired effect. A master wig maker might possess a collection of these cherished patterns passed down from his own esteemed mentor, each one representing not just a past commission, but a significant achievement, a particularly challenging curl that had been masterfully conquered, or a groundbreaking style that had set a new trend and garnered acclaim. When a statesman sought a new wig, particularly one destined for a significant public event, a crucial parliamentary debate, or a period of intense political scrutiny, the wig maker would often consult these extensive archives. This was not with the intention of simply replicating past work exactly, a practice that would be seen as lacking in creativity, but rather to draw inspiration, to adapt existing proven designs to new requirements, to understand the historical context of certain styles, and to ensure that the new wig would be in keeping with established, esteemed precedents of quality and style. The careful, almost reverent preservation of these patterns speaks volumes about the continuity and the evolutionary nature of the craft, highlighting how tradition informed innovation. Each pattern was a tangible testament to years of trial and error, of successful innovations, and perhaps even of cautionary tales of styles that had failed to meet expectations or had proven to be less enduring. Imagine the tactile sensation of unrolling a brittle parchment, its edges softened by time and repeated handling, revealing the precise lines and curves that defined a particular celebrated curl, the angle, the diameter, the spacing. This was not merely paper and ink. It was a repository of embodied knowledge, a silent, ongoing dialogue with the past masters of the trade, their collective wisdom captured on the page. The wig maker, in meticulously examining these patterns, was engaging in a form of historical scholarship, drawing on the accumulated wisdom of generations to inform and elevate his present creation, ensuring that his work was both historically grounded and artistically forward-looking, a bridge between past and present. The subtle variations in hair texture, a factor often overlooked by the uninitiated but critically important to the discerning wig maker, represented a source of both significant challenge and remarkable opportunity for the skilled artisan. Not all hair, even if appearing to be of the same apparent color and length, was created equal in its intrinsic physical properties. Some strands were naturally finer and more pliable, yielding easily to manipulation and heat, while others were thicker, coarser, and more resistant to shaping, requiring a different approach. The wig maker's exceptional skill lay in his acute ability to identify these minute differences by touch and by sight, and to strategically manipulate these inherent properties to his advantage. He would sort the hair with an almost microscopic level of care, grouping strands of similar texture and thickness together, creating homogeneous batches for specific parts of the wig or for particular styling effects. This meticulous sorting allowed him to achieve a more uniform curl, a consistent spring and bounce throughout the entire wig, creating an illusion of organic unity and natural movement. He would also employ different techniques tailored to the specific properties of different types of hair. Fine hair, for instance, might require a gentler application of heat from the curling iron, applied with greater care to prevent damage and breakage, while coarser hair could withstand a more intense heat, allowing for the creation of a more defined, sharper, and more durable curl. The process of dressing the wig, of applying various lotions, oils, and pomades, each with its specific formulation and purpose, also took into account the specific intrinsic qualities of the hair being worked with. Certain formulations would be used to soften stubborn, resistant strands, making them more amenable to curling and styling, while others would be employed to add a desirable sheen, to enhance the natural luster of the hair, and to help hold the newly formed curl firmly in place, ensuring its longevity. This meticulous attention to the intrinsic qualities of the hair, to how it responded to heat, to moisture, and to the chemical treatments applied, was a testament to the wig-maker's deep and intuitive understanding of his medium. It was a complex interplay of empirical science and artistic intuition, a constant negotiation with the inherent properties of the natural world to achieve an artificial, yet socially and politically significant, perfection. The finish of a wig, representing the final, crucial stage of its creation, was the moment when the meticulously constructed artificial structure truly came alive, transforming from a mere assembly of hair into a vibrant, expressive symbol imbued with meaning. This stage involved the careful, artful arrangement of the curls, the precise, almost painterly application of powder to achieve the desired ethereal effect, and the subtle yet significant scenting that completed its sensory profile, leaving a lasting impression. The wig maker would dedicate hours, sometimes days, to this final, intensive phase, ensuring that every strand was in its rightful place, that the powder was evenly and artfully distributed to create a flattering diffusion of light, and that the overall effect was one of effortless grace, impeccable style, and understated authority. The use of fine-toothed combs and specialized brushes, tools honed to perfection by years of dedicated use, was essential to this delicate process of refinement. The wig maker would meticulously tease, shape, and arrange the curls, creating a natural-looking flow and bounce that convincingly mimicked the finest natural hair, a testament to their skill in achieving artifice that appeared effortless. The powdering itself was an act of considerable care and precision, using fine sieves or precisely controlled bellows to achieve an even, delicate dusting that softened the lines, enhanced the texture, and created a luminous, almost halo-like effect. The scent, often applied as a light mist from an atomizer, was the final, defining touch, a subtle olfactory signature that completed the wig's persona, leaving a lasting impression of refinement and personal taste. This was where the wig truly transformed from a meticulously crafted object into a potent symbol of status, authority, and refined taste. The statesman's wig, on this final day of its creation, would emanate an aura of unquestionable authority, of profound sophistication, and of quiet, unassailable command. The wig-maker, stepping back to admire his handiwork, would feel a profound sense of satisfaction, knowing that he had not merely crafted a wig, but had played a significant and indispensable role in shaping the public image of a man of considerable influence, a man whose appearance would be scrutinized by thousands, and whose perceived qualities would impact the lives of many.
The anxieties surrounding a statesman's public image were palpable, almost tangible, in the rarefied air of 18th-century political life, and the wig, the crowning glory of a gentleman's attire, served as a highly visible focal point for many of these deeply held concerns. A perfectly coiffed wig was more than just a fashion statement. It was a bulwark against potential accusations of slovenliness, intellectual dullness, or a lack of personal discipline, perceived failings that could swiftly and irrevocably undermine a political career, regardless of the statesman's actual abilities. In an era where appearances held such profound and often decisive sway, where visual cues were readily interpreted as indicators of character and competence, a single misplaced curl, a patch of unevenly applied powder, or a subtle but noticeable droop in the structure could be magnified in the public imagination into a significant failing, a visible crack in the facade of competence and control. Imagine a tense parliamentary session, the air thick with anticipation and the weight of crucial decisions being debated. A statesman might, almost unconsciously, reach up to adjust his wig, a fleeting, almost reflexive gesture that could be interpreted in a myriad of ways by the watchful eyes of his peers, political opponents, and the wider public. Was he merely seeking physical comfort in the heat of debate, or was he subtly asserting his control over his own presentation, and by extension, over the situation at hand, projecting an image of self-possession? The wigmaker, by creating a wig that was both structurally sound in its construction and impeccably perfect in its aesthetic presentation, provided a crucial measure of reassurance to his esteemed clients. He was, in essence, providing them with a form of visual armor, a carefully constructed and artfully maintained facade that would, he hoped, withstand the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. The quiet perfection of the curl was thus not merely a matter of aesthetics, it was a testament to the wig-maker's unwavering dedication to his craft, and a tangible source of quiet confidence for the statesman as he navigated the treacherous waters of public life, his appearance a silent reinforcement of his perceived authority and intellect.
The economic realities of wig-making, while seemingly removed from the grand pronouncements and weighty decisions of statesmen, were intrinsically and inexorably linked to the very foundations of their careers and their ability to maintain their public standing. The cost of a high-quality wig, particularly one destined for a man of significant public standing and influence, was considerable, reflecting not only the immense skill and artistry of the wig-maker, but also the protracted time investment required for its creation and the considerable expense of the finest materials involved. Human hair, particularly of the desired colors and textures, fair, auburn, or rich brown, often sourced from specific regions known for their quality, was a valuable commodity, often procured from distant lands through complex and sometimes ethically ambiguous trading networks, adding to its cost. The intricate labor involved in its preparation, its meticulous curling, and its artful dressing further escalated the overall expense, pushing the price point beyond the reach of ordinary gentlemen and into the exclusive domain of the elite. For a statesman, the investment in a superior wig was not a frivolous expense, a mere indulgence of vanity, but rather a strategic and necessary one, an essential component of their public presentation. It was an investment in their public image, in their perceived competence and authority, and ultimately in their ability to command respect, to influence opinion, and to wield political power effectively. The wig-maker, in turn, relied fundamentally on the patronage of the elite, the aristocracy, the judiciary, the highest echelons of government, and wealthy merchants to sustain his business, to maintain his reputation, and to ensure the continued viability of his specialized craft. This created a deeply symbiotic and interdependent relationship where the demands and expectations of the statesman directly fueled the meticulous craftsmanship, artistic dedication, and professional expertise of the wig-maker. The quiet yet significant exchange of coin for coiffure was thus a fundamental transaction within the intricate and highly stratified economy of power, prestige, and social standing that defined 18th-century society. A transaction that underscored the profound importance of outward appearance in the pursuit and maintenance of influence.
The evolution of wig styles throughout the 18th century was not a sudden, dramatic, or revolutionary event, but rather a gradual, almost organic process, influenced by a multitude of interwoven factors that constantly shaped and reshaped fashion. These included the ebb and flow of changing aesthetic sensibilities, the specific preferences of particularly influential figures whose tastes often dictated trends, and even, at times, the seismic impact of political events and shifts in national mood that could subtly influence sartorial choices. The grand, full-bottomed wig, so ubiquitous and visually dominant in the early decades of the century, a symbol of unassailable tradition and established power, gradually began to yield its prominence to less cumbersome, more manageable styles. The periwig, characterized by its shorter, more practical curls and a more contained silhouette, gained increasing popularity, offering its wearer a greater degree of flexibility, comfort, and a more contemporary, forward-looking appearance. The wig-maker, a keen observer of his societal landscape and the subtle currents of change, had to remain acutely attuned to these subtle yet significant shifts, constantly adapting his techniques, refining his skills, and expanding his repertoire of available styles to meet the evolving demands of his clientele.
He would diligently observe the emerging trends in the royal court, the vibrant performances in the theater, and the sophisticated discussions in the fashionable salons, seeking inspiration for new designs and anticipating the evolving desires of his patrons. The statesman, too, played a crucial role in this ongoing evolution, his personal choices and public appearances influencing the direction of fashion. A particularly admired statesman who boldly adopted a new style, a novel arrangement of curls, or a different shade of powder would invariably see his innovation emulated by others seeking to align themselves with his perceived prestige, his influential status, and his forward-thinking sensibility. The wigmaker, therefore, was not merely a craftsman passively responding to existing demand. He was a subtle yet significant agent of sartorial change, his meticulous work contributing to the ever-shifting and complex landscape of 18th-century fashion. The curl, in all its manifold variations, was a silent language spoken through hair, and the wigmaker was its most eloquent, skilled, and influential interpreter, shaping not just appearances but perceptions.
And so we return to the quiet obsession, the countless hours, the months spent perfecting the precise curl of a statesman's wig, a dedication that might seem excessive to modern eyes, but which held profound significance in its own time. It was never truly about the hair itself, not in isolation, but about what that meticulously crafted hair represented: order, control, intellectual acuity, and undeniable authority. The wigmaker, in his dimly lit workshop, his brow furrowed in concentration as he meticulously shaped each strand, was participating in a profound social and political ritual, a silent yet essential act of image-making. He was crafting not merely a fashion accessory, but a powerful symbol, an outward manifestation of the inner qualities that a statesman sought to project to the world, and that the world, in turn, expected and demanded to see. The subtle, lingering scent of pomade, the gentle hiss of heated irons shaping the hair, the soft, almost musical rustle of carefully arranged curls, these were the sensory details of a world where appearances were not superficial but paramount, where the visual language of a gentleman's attire conveyed vital messages of status, capability, and worth. The wigmaker's dedication, his quiet obsession with the minutiae of his craft, was the nation's silent assurance, a testament to the enduring human need to present oneself with dignity, with competence, and with an undeniable air of command. The curl, so seemingly insignificant in its individual form, was the tangible, meticulously crafted embodiment of these profound aspirations, a finely tuned instrument in the grand, complex symphony of 18th-century power and influence. The archive, in its hushed silence, holds the faint, enduring echoes of this dedication, a gentle, persistent reminder that even the smallest, most seemingly trivial detail can, and indeed often does, carry the weight of empires and shape the course of history.